Did Shekinah just cross a line that cannot be undone? In a crowded Atlanta courtroom, tension gripped the room when Shekinah Anderson rose, visibly shaking, holding a small silver flash drive. Nobody anticipated what would happen next, not the judge, the cameras, or T. Silence fell as she whispered they wanted the truth. Here it is. Seconds later, a video began to play, and the courtroom erupted in shock. T's face drained of color. Tiny shouted for the judge to halt the tape while reporters scrambled to capture every moment. What was meant to be a routine hearing transformed into a public spectacle, sending ripples through the entertainment world. Was this Shekinah acting out of revenge, or was it a desperate plea for justice? Why reveal something so private, so perilous, in front of everyone? They say the truth can set you free, but this truth threatened to dismantle everything. Once the footage hit the screen, nothing friendship, family, or fame would ever be the same. When the judge finally called for order, it was already too late. The gavel's sharp sound echoed through the courtroom, but it could not quell the storm that had begun. The judge's voice cracked over the chaos, demanding silence and control, yet no one complied. Every reporter, camera, and spectator leaned forward, eyes wide, breaths shallow, on the screen. The forbidden footage played like a curse that had been unleashed. Shekinah remained still, hands tightly clasped, knuckles white. The flickering video cast shadows across her face, revealing a mix of fear and grim satisfaction, and unsettling contradiction only she bore. In that moment, she was no longer just a witness or friend, she embodied the storm itself. The courtroom had become her stage, and the truth, whatever it was, her weapon. Tiny sobs punctured the tension like breaking glass. She covered her face, trembling, shaking her head as though denial could undo what had been revealed. Her voice, frail and pleading, carried through the courtroom. Please make it stop, please. But the judge's commands were drowned out by whispers, gasps, and the relentless clicking of cameras capturing every second of her breakdown. T sat frozen, jaw clenched as if carved from stone, unblinking, barely breathing. Each frame of the video struck him like a dagger, stripping away the layers of his composure. His lawyers whispered urgently in his ear, but he remained still. Whatever this was truth or trap, it was too late. The world had already formed its narrative. Outside the courthouse, crowds gathered like moths to a flame. Screens flashed breaking news banners, and hashtags spread rapidly across social media. Within minutes, the courtroom incident had ignited a digital wildfire. Shelia trended at #1. People watched, analyzed, and speculated, debating the collapse of a friendship they barely knew. Inside the courtroom, time felt slower. Every second carried the weight of years of loyalty, betrayal, and secrets shared behind closed doors. Shaken's eyes, once filled with tears of shared laughter beside Tiny, now reflected something else, a quiet fury born from pain too deep to measure. Reporters later noted a fleeting moment when Shaka's expression shifted from control to vulnerability, as if she understood that even a victory rooted in revenge could leave a bitter taste. But the cameras ignored humanity. They only captured spectacle. The footage ended suddenly. The screen went black, leaving only the echo of gasps and heartbeats. The silence that followed was almost unbearable. Then chaos erupted. The defense attorney jumped to his feet, shouting objections and claiming the footage was fake, manipulated, and inadmissible. Tiny's attorney demanded a recess, citing emotional trauma. The judge's patience began to fray. "She Anderson?" the judge said, voice tense. "What exactly do you think you're doing here?" Her reply was nearly a whisper, telling the truth. The judge exhaled in exasperation. "This court is not a stage for your grievances." She lifted her chin, resolute. Then where else does the truth go if no one listens outside? Her words hung in the room, bold and unapologetic. Some audience members clapped before realizing it was inappropriate, while others watched, unsure if they were witnessing justice or chaos. Tiny turned to her former friend, tears cutting through her makeup. "You were my sister," she said, voice breaking. "How could you do this?" For the first time since the turmoil began, Shaken met her gaze not as an opponent, not as an accuser, but as someone who had once cared. Her lips parted, yet no words came. The silence between them carried more weight than any evidence or verdict. Almost mercifully, the judge called for a recess as the courtroom began to empty. Outside, the world continued to spin in frenzy. Commentators speculated motives, fans took sides, and every news outlet rushed to dissect each second of the leaked video. But for those inside shaken, tiny, and T, the noise outside meant little. They were engulfed in their own storm. She walked toward the exit, heels clicking across the marble floor, each step deliberate and measured. Her lawyer tried to caution her about potential consequences, but she brushed him aside. The air around her felt heavier, colder. One voice inside whispered that perhaps she had gone too far. Another, louder and wounded, insisted this was justice. Tiny remained seated long after everyone else had departed. She stared blankly at the dark screen, seeing only the ghostly reflection of her own face. For years, she had built her world on loyalty to her husband, her friends, and her carefully curated image. Now, all of it was crumbling around her. She wasn't sure which hurt more, the betrayal itself, or realizing it came from someone who once called her sister. T finally rose from his seat, adjusting his tie with mechanical precision. His expression revealed nothing, but his eyes burned with a quiet rage, the intensity of a man cornered. Without a word, he turned and walked out, his entourage trailing behind like shadows. Outside, cameras swarmed, voices shouting questions, microphones thrust forward, desperate for sound bites. Shaken, was the video real? Tiny, are you pressing charges? T, do you deny the allegations? None of them responded. In a world addicted to noise, the silence had become the story, and it was the most powerful statement of all. Outside the courthouse, night had fallen, draping chaos and darkness. News vans lined the street, antennas pointed skyward as if searching for answers in the clouds. Reporters shouted into cameras, breath visible in the cold air. Lower thirds blared words like betrayal, revenge, and expose. While networks replayed the story endlessly, breaking tonight, the Shekinah scandal shakes the Harris empire to its core. Inside a waiting car, she sat motionless. Her reflection shimmered in the window, eyes red, expression unreadable. Her phone buzzed incessantly with hundreds of messages from journalists, former friends, and strangers alike. Half called her brave, the other half labeled her a monster. She turned the screen face down. For the first time in hours, the silence felt like relief. Her lawyer broke it. We need to talk about damage control. This isn't just a scandal, it's an inferno, she exhaled, watching fog bloom on the glass. Let it burn, she said quietly. Perhaps that was the only way to start over. But the words didn't taste like freedom, they tasted like guilt. This didn't begin in the courtroom. It began years ago when the lights were softer, the laughter genuine, and loyalty still felt unbreakable. She remembered Tiny's living room, the scent of expensive candles, and the secrets they had shared. They used to spend nights planning shows, exchanging jokes, and defending each other against the relentless tide of gossip. T.I. would enter a room larger than life, the center of their universe, and everyone else orbited around him. Fame was intoxicating, and for a time, friendship was enough to overshadow the bitterness it brought. Then came the cracks, small and almost invisible at first. A comment that stung, a decision made without her, the way cameras always seemed to focus elsewhere. She told herself it was nothing, that love and loyalty outweighed ego. But fame is like gravity. It pulls, stretches, and eventually breaks. She remembered the night it all truly began to unravel. A party, music thundering, laughter masking tension. She overheard whispers she wasn't meant to hear, her name spoken with disdain, lies about her loyalty, her intentions. When she confronted them, the silence that followed spoke louder than any denial could. That night, something inside her fractured. The footage, the same one now circulating across news cycles, had originally been her safeguard. She never intended to use it. It was a reminder that she wasn't powerless. But power has a way of calling when you feel weak. Months later, when the public turned on her, when the Harris circle erased her from every project and headline, the temptation became impossible to resist. Revenge wasn't planned, it emerged naturally. Her lawyer's voice cut through her memory. You understand the risks, right? Defamation, invasion of privacy, contempt of court. Shekinah's eyes hardened. They've been destroying my name for years. I just finally gave them something real to talk about. He sighed, defeated. At what cost? She looked away. Outside, the courthouse lights glowed like embers. Somewhere inside, Tiny was likely still crying, and T was already plotting his next move, statements, denials, a PR machine in motion. Shekinah knew the cycle. Public outrage would flare, then fade, and eventually the world would move on. But those caught inside the story would never be the same. Back at the courthouse steps, Tiny faced her own kind of spotlight. Paparazzi shouted questions she couldn't answer. Mascara streaked, voice lost. Every headline painted her as the broken wife, the betrayed friend, trapped between loyalty and humiliation. She despised the cameras, the pity, but most of all, she hated that a friendship she once called family had turned into this public spectacle. He paced like a caged animal. His phone vibrated relentlessly. Managers, lawyers, producers. He slammed it down and stared into the dim light, tense and unreadable. "They think they can destroy me with this," he muttered. Yet even as he spoke, his reflection revealed less defiance and more fear. By midnight, the footage had been analyzed countless times. Experts debated its authenticity. Social media churned out theories, podcasts dissected it, and online communities speculated endlessly. Every frame was scrutinized, slowed down, memed, and dissected for debates and moral lessons. The story was no longer Shekinah's truth. It had become everyone's entertainment. Still, when the world slept, Shekinah remained awake. In the dim glow of her apartment, she sat at her vanity, the same one where she had once prepared for shows alongside Tiny. She traced the edge of the mirror, searching for the person she used to be. A notification blinked on her phone. One new message from an old number. 3 words, simple and piercing. "Why did you do it?" Her throat tightened. She typed a reply, deleted it, tried again, then finally gave up. No words could undo what had already been done. She set the phone down and whispered to the empty room. No one believed me when I was quiet. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance, the soundtrack of a city addicted to drama. She closed her eyes and for a fleeting moment imagined another world, one where she hadn't pressed play, where friendship had survived fame. That world was gone. All that remained was this: the story, the scandal, the silence after the storm. As dawn crept through her window, turning night's chaos into morning light, Shekinah realized something chilling. In exposing everyone else's truth, she had stripped away her own. Morning arrived without mercy. By sunrise, every television in Atlanta looped the same grainy freeze frame of Shekinah and T in court, with headlines scrolling beneath. Leaked footage shocks Harris' family, betrayal or justice. The city buzzed with speculation. Talk shows analyzed motives, radio callers shouted opinions, and influencers posted reaction videos between sponsored ads. The scandal had evolved beyond truth. It had become entertainment, and everyone wanted a piece. In a sleek downtown studio, a PR team gathered around like a group surrounding a wounded general. "We need to get ahead of this," his manager said. Press conference by noon. Statement at 3. Denial across every platform. T nodded slowly, eyes hidden behind dark glasses. One voice suggested, "We bury her." Another countered, "Character assassination. Discredit everything. Make her look unstable." He said nothing. Deep down, he knew they didn't need to make her look unstable. The world was already doing it for them. Still, his silence became consent. The machine began to move. By the afternoon, the narrative had shifted. Headlines changed tone. Unverified footage sparks outrage shaken under fire. Anonymous sources close to the family appeared on gossip sites, portraying her as jealous, erratic, and vengeful. Old videos resurfaced. Quotes were twisted, memories weaponized. Tiny watched it all from the quiet of her bedroom. Curtains drawn, phone on silent, tears dried to salt on her cheeks. The footage haunted her dreams, not because of what it revealed, but because of who had released it. Shaken's voice echoed in her mind, whispering, "Play it," as if it were a prayer. Tiny replayed every conversation they had ever shared, searching for signs she had missed. Her husband appeared on television later that evening, composed and smooth. The press conference was meticulously staged, remorse without guilt, confidence without arrogance. "We are victims of a malicious act," he told reporters. "We trust the legal system to uncover the truth." Tiny sat alone, staring at the screen. The words sounded correct, rehearsed, safe, but they didn't feel real. She no longer knew who to believe. Meanwhile, Shaken's world was shrinking. Networks that had called her brave yesterday were now calling her unstable. Endorsements vanished. Invitations disappeared. Her phone, once filled with validation, now buzzed with threats and hate. She stopped answering calls. She stopped leaving her apartment. The city that had once celebrated her now whispered her name like a warning. The few friends who visited came with nervous smiles and quick goodbyes. One night, a new segment aired, showing her apartment building blurred but recognizable. The host teased exclusive updates. She turned off the television and sat in the dark, every sound a car outside, a footstep in the hall feeling like judgment arriving, days blurred together. She ate little, slept less. Her mind replayed the courtroom the moment the footage began to play. The satisfaction she had once felt, the small spark of vengeance, had vanished, replaced by something heavier and colder. Regret had moved in and made itself at home. Then came the letter. No return address, written in careful feminine script, a single sentence, "You wanted the truth to be seen. Now everyone sees you." She read it again and again until the words lost all meaning. She didn't know if it came from Tiny, a fan, or a stranger. It didn't matter, the message was clear. The world she had exposed had turned its gaze back on her. Across town, T sat in his studio. Surrounded by half-finished lyrics and empty bottles, the press conference had calmed the headlines, but not his mind. Flashes of the footage replayed in fragments he couldn't erase. He had built his image on control, dominance, and composure. Now, every glance felt suspicious, every whisper felt like accusation. Tiny entered quietly, her steps soft. For a long moment, they said nothing. Then she whispered, "Do you ever think maybe she wasn't lying?" He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The silence between them said it all. Outside, rain began to fall thin, relentless, washing the city in gray. Somewhere, a news anchor droned through a television. The Shekinah scandal continues to unfold as investigators examine the authenticity of the leaked footage. The story had grown beyond betrayal. It was now about what people choose to believe and how belief, once weaponized, can destroy everyone it touches. She stared out the window, watching rain trace lines down the glass. She wondered if this was how truth always ended, not with justice, not with peace, but with quiet ruin. And as the world continued to talk, she whispered the only question that still mattered: if I hadn't pressed play, would they have ever listened? The story doesn't end here. It lingers like smoke after a fire. 3 lives, once bound by friendship and fame, now lie scattered in the wreckage of truth and betrayal. The courtroom is empty, the lights off, but the echoes remain. Shaken's trembling voice, Tiny's broken cry to ease silent rage. Some call it justice, others call it revenge. But what if it's neither? What if it's simply the cost of truth in a world built on illusion? Every frame of that leaked footage may fade from the headlines, but the questions it raised will outlast the scandal. How far would you go to be heard when no one believes your silence? Maybe Shekinah wasn't a villain. Maybe Tiny wasn't a victim. Maybe T wasn't guilty. Or maybe they all were, in different ways. In a world of filters, followers, and fragile loyalty, the truth doesn't destroy you, it exposes what was already broken. Now it's your turn to decide. Was Shekinah's act a cry for justice or a calculated move for attention? Did Tiny deserve heartbreak or the truth? Was T a casualty or the cause? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and share which side you're on. Hit the like button, and if this story left you speechless, share it so the truth can be seen. And don't forget to subscribe, this saga isn't over.